Hello and welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. As you know, I'm Big Italy 42 here talking about tonight's short slate of action. We've only got 6 games. There was a day slate as well. It's already about to tip off by now. So, a couple interesting options for tonight's slate. DraftKings is going to be tough because not a lot of pitchers that I love. Obviously, you have to play 2 pitchers. My top option, of course, as DraftKings has as their top option as well, is Johnny Cueto. $10,100 for him tonight. He's a minus 165 favorite and a 7-run total tonight. And that's in Great American Ballpark. As we know, a bandbox. Wind's blowing in just a little bit in this one, so you got to like Johnny Cueto's prospects here. Only concern he's had this season is he's given up 7 home runs, but being at home against this Giants team that does not have a whole lot of power is really not going to concern me too much. His strikeout rate's a little bit lower than you'd like it to be, but he's still doing fine. I think that he's going to be in a great spot tonight. He's your obvious top option, big favorite as well. He's got big upside there. The Giants don't strike out a ton, but Johnny Cueto, like I said, sizable favorite at home. And you think the Reds will probably give him a little bit of run support there with Tim Lincecum, although he is pitching much better on the other side there. Outside of him, I like Tyson Ross only in tournaments just because Washington's been on fire, and I'm going to be playing to Bryce Harper, especially on a short slate, but Ross is certainly an interesting play in your GPP. He's got a 60% ground ball rate on the season, 26.4% strikeout rate. But what's been his biggest downfall is his walks. 12.6% even walks so far this season, so you don't like that. He's keeping the ball in the park. Obviously, pitching in San Diego certainly helps that. But some big bats on that Washington side makes him kind of out of play for me in cash games. And, you know, as you're looking at the total here, it's a 6.5 run total. So he's a sizable or a small favorite at minus 118 over Doug Fister, who I think is also a decent cash game option. You've got a lineup there in San Diego that just hasn't been great. You've got Will Myers, who has been getting some tests on his left wrist. He's still going to be out of the lineup, so they're missing one of those bats there. And, you know, obviously as you're looking at this, you're going to look at San Diego's numbers against righties. And, you know, you got Justin Upton, who's a lefty masher. You obviously like that. But righty on the mound today, and the Padres haven't been great against righties. 20.2% strikeout rates, right around league average, 308 team WOBA. So they're an average team, but Doug Fister doesn't strike out anyone ever. 10.6% strikeout rate, 4.7% swinging strike rate. So he's really not fooling anyone. I think he's an okay option, but I don't love him. Tim Lincecum, I mentioned there, he's been pitching really well recently. 2 good starts against Miami and the Angels. And now coming in, facing up against the Reds, who are 21st in the league against right-handed pitching, 20.6% strikeout rate, right around league average there in most ways. So, you know, it's a fine matchup for Lincecum. Vegas thinks this one will stay low scoring as well. I tend to agree. For tournaments, I like Roenis Elias against a Boston team who's bottom 5 in the league in team WOBA, 244 over the last 7 days. This team is just not hitting the ball. Elias has looked fine in his first 3 starts, 6, 8, and 5 Ks. He went 5 2/3, 6 and 7 innings. He's pitched well. He has given up 3 home runs in his last 2 starts, but 2, 3, and 3 earned runs total. So this is a guy who, if he keeps his command under control, he's got a nice strikeout rate of 24.7 through those 3 starts. I think he's a very interesting tournament option. Same thing goes for Drew Hutchison. Haven't seen a strikeout upside this year very much. Did have 6 in his last outing. Had 7 against Baltimore earlier this year. But this guy's got significant upside. We know Houston against righties and against lefties, they strike out a lot. 24.8% against righties. So I think he's an interesting tournament play as well. But like I said, no one that I really love as a second cash game play. Brett Anderson's an interesting one because he keeps the ball on the ground really well. He's pitched pretty good over his past few starts. Actually didn't give up an earned run at Colorado last time out. Now faces those same Rockies who are really, really struggling. Also bottom 5 over the last week hitting. So I think Brett Anderson is your de facto number 2 cash game play, your SP2. Vegas loves him, minus 200 favorite, 8-run total here. Chad Bettis on the other side. I think that the Dodger bats get to him, so I think he'll get plenty of run support. So I definitely like that option as your SP2 if you got to choose one, and you do on DraftKings. So moving over here to catcher, Russell Martin gets a nice matchup against Roberto Hernandez, but he's almost 5K. A little pricey for me there, guys. Monty Grandal, $4,100 against Chad Bettis. I like him looking that way. Mike Zunino, This guy's been hitting the ball pretty well recently. Had 2 home runs 2 games ago. He's a punt option, but he's 4K, so he's kind of out of consideration for me there. I'm really not playing Buster Posey against Johnny Cueto. Not targeting the San Francisco Bats against top pitcher of the night, who's probably going to be on all of my rosters. An interesting play is Derek Norris at home against Doug Fister. Obviously, righty-righty matchup. Doug Fister's been pretty good against righties, though. But not particularly deep position here at catcher tonight. You got Jason Castro's homered 2 straight games, but those are the only 2 hits he's had against Drew Hutchison. You don't love that play. Maybe look and see if you can get some cheap value here. If Brian Pena is in the lineup again, he's an interesting play at $2,900. He's been hitting the ball a decent over the course of the season when he gets spot starts. Devin Mesoraco is an interesting tournament option at $4,200 if he's in the lineup as well. But definitely make sure, check and see. Maybe we'll get some catcher values in some nice spots tonight. Moving over to first base, I love Adrian Gonzalez today at $4,500 against Chad Bettis. He's in a great spot. Todd Frazier, first base, third base eligible. I'll get to him in a minute. I think he's a nice tournament option as well. If you're looking for cash games, I like Joey Votto at $4,300. I think he's in a fine spot there against Tim Lincecum at home. Elsewhere, I mean, there's just not a lot to love. You got Chase Whitley has really struggled with lefties. Actually got 3 home runs to left-handed hitters in his last game. So James Loney at $3,600 looks like an interesting cash game play if you're punting. I don't mind him at all. Chris Colabello finally had an over last time. He's first base outfield eligible at $3,300. He's an interesting play. Outside of that, I don't love anything. Tournament play, you can look at David Ortiz for $4,000, but he's just not hitting the ball right now. Not a guy that I really want to target very much if I can avoid it. And Ryan Zimmerman, interesting cash game play there as well. Also, tough matchup, though, against Tyson Ross. Moving on here to second base, where we've got Howie Kendrick at the top of the pile at $4,500. Already said I like the Dodgers. I like him despite the righty-righty matchup. He hits righties pretty well. Robbie Cano, if you're paying, against Joe Kelly, who was really wild in his last start with 7 walks. I like Robbie Cano there as well. Justin Turner's interesting. He batted second last night. Look and see where he's at. I don't know that I want to pay $4,100 for him, but he's an interesting tournament option. You got Altuve there against Drew Hutchison. I like Altuve against everyone. He's a great cash game play. Luis Valbuena, a nice tournament option. And then you got Devin Travis, still cheap. He's been struggling, but at $3,300 tonight against Roberto Hernandez, I think he's going to be my go-to. I'm going to go ahead and punt, go that way with him and my cash games. And if it's not for him, Logan Forsythe batted 5th last night, beginning a nice lineup spot. $3,200 against Chase Whitley. I don't think he's in a bad spot either. And Corey Spangenberg, another guy hitting the ball pretty well. He's sitting there at $3K. I don't mind that play either. Moving over to third base, where we've got some interesting options here. Josh Donaldson, massive upside here at $4,700. Already mentioned Todd Frazier. I like Pablo Sandoval a lot here against Reynes Elias. Over his last 2 games, but right before that, he was really starting to get it going. He's batting .285 in the season, so I like him. Should be batting right around cleanup in this order. And like I said, an offense is really not getting it going. Maybe they do tonight if Elias is wild, get a lot of base runners, and maybe they have a couple big innings. I like Alex Rodriguez at $4,000 tonight, and a fine matchup. Kyle Seager at home against Joe Kelly at $3,900 makes for a nice safe play for your cash games. Outside of that, going cheaper, really no one that jumps off the page at me. Escobar's been hitting the ball pretty well. You can look at him against Tyson Ross tonight, but I don't love targeting a bunch of players against Tyson Ross. And then Alex Guerrero. Last night was the darling, really, really cheap on DraftKings. $3K. If he's in the lineup again tonight, the guy has been on fire, batting .370 on the season. Gotta love him in this spot. Moving on to shortstop, Troy Tulowitzki, of course, against the lefty. A decent lefty in Brett Anderson. And it is in L.A., which is more of a pitcher's park than anything. So I don't think I'll be paying for him. Hanley Ramirez is an interesting tournament option at $4,300. I'm really not a big fan of what Ian Desmond's been doing, and by that I mean not doing. So I don't think I'll be playing him. Jimmy Rollins, of course, involved in that great Dodger offense. Not swinging a particularly good bat this year, batting .172. So you don't love that, but I think he's an okay cash game play because he should be involved in what I think is going to be a big night for the Dodgers. But I kind of think that every night. They're just incredibly good right now. Brad Miller at $3,200 is the guy I think I'll be going with more often than not. Guy's 4 hits, including 3 doubles and a home run over his last 2 games. Batting second right now. Gets Joe Kelly tonight. I think $3,200. He's the way I'm going to go. I'm going to punt down there. I think he's a fine tournament option as well. That's about it for shortstop on his short slate. Moving on to the outfield, Bryce Harper is $5,400. All this guy is doing is crushing the ball. He's patient at the plate. Have fun with Tyson Ross tonight in cash games. I can't do it because of guys like Bryce Harper. I know Tyson Ross, a well above average pitcher. I actually like Tyson Ross, but I want some Bryce Harper exposure, especially on a 6-game slate. So I'll have a lot of him tonight. He's the hottest hitter in the world right now. Other guys you can consider, Jacoby Ellsbury in a fine spot here at $4,700. I like him a lot. Same for Brett Gardner, but he's more expensive. Not sure why. Much prefer Ellsbury here. George Springer came back from injury. You know I love him. Hit a homer in his first game back. $4,900. He's a guy that can do it all. So watch for him to be active on the base pass as well. Jock Peterson, once again, will be pretty popular. He's $4,400. Should be leading off again. Then looking down here for some value plays in the outfield. There's not a lot of them to like at all. Chris Colabella already mentioned is $3,300. I'll probably be going that route in some spots. Will Venable, if he's in the lineup, he's been hitting the ball really well recently. He's got 8 hits over his last 4 games. I think at $3,400, he's a fine punt against Doug Fister. Outside of that, if you're going cheap, Andre Ethier has been pretty good. I don't mind him there at $3,500. Colby Rasmus gives you some really nice upside against his former team there at $3,700. I like his prospects against Drew Hutchison in tournaments. And then, of course, you're considering Seth Smith against a righty at $3,800. And outside of that, some upside guys, Jay Bruce at home against Tim Lincecum. You've got Billy Hamilton active on the base pass, as always. You got to like target him. And Marlon Byrd remains hot right now. Homered again last night. Still batting only .212 in the season, but he's finally showing some pop. Batted 5th last night, was batting 2nd for a while. Look and see where he's at. He's an interesting play as well. And then I'll throw out Mookie Betts at $4,400 against Elias. If Boston can get it going, like to think he'll be a big part of it as well. That's going to wrap things up for this Thursday short 6-game slate. Find us on Twitter at DFCafe. As always, we have a lot of great content for tonight's slate at dailyfantasycafe.com, and I will see you tomorrow.